What's up, Christian? How you doing?
How's it going, Joe?
Doing very good, doing very good. Yeah, I think it's actually the first time we've had a chance to meet, so it's good to finally meet you. I see you on Instagram a lot, usually lifting lots of weight.
Yeah,
Um,
no, for sure. And I know I feel like I kind of know you already just because we've had a lot of like side direct message conversations on Insta, but it's great to finally be able to chat virtually in
yeah,
person.
yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. For people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm Christian Steinert, CEO, founder of Steinert Analytics. We're a Central Ohio-based data consultancy specializing in data integration, data visualization, data reporting, and analysis for small to medium-sized SaaS companies around Central Ohio. And Joe, I'd like to kind of harp on that point a little bit throughout the conversation because I know we were talking about a potential niche for a specific industry that I have connections in that would be suitable in Columbus area to maybe kind of deviate away from SaaS businesses eventually. But for now, yeah, I'm kind of that typical broad data consultant trying to find a niche.
Yeah, we can get into that. Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts on that. So, um, but what's it been like jumping into the consulting world? I guess I should ask, what were you doing before you made the leap?
Yeah, so prior to the leap, I was at JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, as a senior analytics engineer, handling their markets division company with LaSalle, and I was handling their AUM reporting pipeline, mainly in Looker. And I'm primarily bread and butter have always been Looker heavy as a developer. Before that, I was an analyst at a telehealth startup. So as you're kind of seeing, like I have a broad range of industry experience from this very start of
Right.
my career. And then prior to that, even breaking into BI and data engineering, I was actually a marketing analyst. So I was in like B2B partner marketing as a specialist and an analyst at a global IT manufacturing company out of Columbus area.
That's cool. And Columbus, to be fair, it feels a lot like Salt Lake, where it's not a tech hub. It's not, I think the first city that comes to mind when people think of data. What's it been like doing a consultancy in, I guess, kind of a mid-tier city?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I mean, I've been grateful and blessed to have a lot of good connections here out of the gate. So when I actually was time to take the leap, I already knew a lot of people that were willing to give me business and attention. And so I feel like just being a little bit smaller, it's actually helped me in that capacity get organic clients. And I'm going to be the first to admit transparently, most of my business thus far has been organic primarily. I'm working on lead gen, I'm working on email marketing strategy and things like that right now. But I would say that's like the biggest upside to a city that's large enough, but it also feels small at times too. And I
Hmm.
feel like the data community here and even the tech community in Columbus is very tight knit and everyone's willing to help each other. And there's lots of icebreakers and networking socials that you can kind of get your name out there pretty easily.
That's super cool. Yeah, and I think you had a big conference there. Was it this week or last week? It was Data
Yeah, last
Connect.
week. So it was the Data Connect 2024 Women in Analytics hosted conference. Yeah,
Nice. What was
which
that
is more
like?
global, actually.
I guess. Oh, it is. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was
Uh-huh.
because I saw all my friends going to Columbus, and I was like, okay, I guess it's a place. I used to go out there for the Arnold show,
There it is.
and the UFC way back when I was doing some work with the UFC, but that was a long, long time ago. So
Well,
Columbus is a cool town, though. I like it. Yeah,
yeah, it's
good
got a good
place.
vibe. And it's not too far away from my Wisconsin roots. So I'm actually from Wisconsin, moved down here in 2018. And
Nice.
it's not a terrible drive. Sometimes it is, depending on the traffic through Chicago and Indiana. But that's a different story. But yeah, still kind of the Midwest
Yeah,
roots at the end of the day.
that's pretty cool. So why did you get into consulting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really stems back to number one, my grandfather actually started and founded a national printing company in the late 40s, and that actually just got sold in like 2021.
Hmm.
But Steinert Printing was actually the name, fitting enough. Steinert Analytics, and that's by design. I've actually made a post on LinkedIn about that in the past, but he was always a great inspiration to me. And then on top of that, my father actually had a dental practice, private dental practice, all throughout my childhood. So I always kind of grew up around a more business owner mentality, parent and grandparent. And I think that just naturally kind of was infused into me, even if I didn't really realize it at the time. And then the second fold of that is in college, once I got into business school at University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, I just started like grabbing onto the idea of entrepreneurship. It excited me. And then my junior year, I actually did a pitch competition at the Culver's Model Contest. So I don't know if you know, like, Culver's fast food. It's like more
Hmm.
Midwest dominant. It's out of Wisconsin, but Craig Culver, the CEO, is the main sponsor for these pitch model contests at the College of Business, and we pitched. It was almost like a like in a home care platform based business. It was a SaaS company, and I think that's really common now in hospitals. But back in 2017, it was a little less common, especially
Right.
pre-COVID. And so we won like $7,900 at that and took
Nice.
third place in front of like 250 people and like 7 angel investors. And so that was like the spark where I was like, man, if I could just get back to feeling that way of like liberation and excitement and passion all aligned, while you're adding value, that's what I wanted to do. And then I found analytics as I got progressively more into my marketing research courses, digital marketing analytics courses, because I should mention I was a marketing major, so I'm more on the self-taught spectrum as far as like analytics go. But yeah, that was kind of how it all sparked. And then eventually, as I kind of got full time, I always had something in mind, and I was like, you know what, I'm spending so much time learning these data skills. Why not try to make some side hustle income out of it? And then eventually, it just
Mm,
fruition to going all in.
makes sense. Yeah. Well, congrats for making the leap. It's not an easy one.
No,
So,
not at
what
all.
was it? What was it like jumping into it? I mean, were you nervous, scared, like ice cold, just focused as hell?
Yeah,
Like, what was it?
no,
What
I
was it?
was I was nervous but also excited. I remember the day that I put in my 2 weeks at my full time employer. Um, I didn't get much work done that day, as I think anyone could imagine. But I was just so filled with so many mixed emotions because I had been on the fence for probably the last like 3 months prior to jumping full time.
Mm,
And once I finally made the leap, yeah, I was stomping around my apartment, just listening to music, trying to just like get some kind of like make sense of the release, I guess, of like actually hitting the send button on Outlook to my bosses. And yeah, that was really it because it was still, I had some solid contracts built up. And so I was in a good position, but there was still a lot of uncertainty as far as how am I going to build my own pipeline? What if these contracts fall through after a few months after jumping? I mean, I think these are common concerns that anyone that does
oh
this
yeah.
would have. But yeah, just I guess took the bull by the horns.
It's how you got to do it. I mean, I think, and one of the things I think that the audience will take away from this is, I think there's a lot of people listening who want to jump off and do their own thing, and maybe that's consulting, maybe it's something else. But I'll never forget too what you described that tension of hitting the send button on your email, where you're basically saying, "I'm done." You know, that it's one of those moments that, yeah, there's some apprehension for sure. I've done it a few times, different jobs, and and it's yeah, because you're like, do I really want to do this? And I guess when you hit the send button, you're like, I guess I just did it. So
No going back now. Yeah. No, and I
yeah,
like that article on your Substack that you wrote about it. But on that too, I want to bring up, I wouldn't have been able to do this without the, 5.5 years prior learning industries, learning data with full-time employers, having a really enabling boss at the telehealth startup that I was at, who is
right.
still my data mentor today, and he's really connected in the Columbus area community, a data community, I should say. So that, I'm forever grateful for that experience, and I want to point that out because I think so. I feel like maybe just in social media in general, there's such a rush to jump right away, and by no means, like I look at myself and like I'm still very young to be doing this full time. At least I feel
Yep.
like that a lot of times. But that foundational experience, I felt confident enough that hey, like I can go add some value in some capacity right now for people around the Central Ohio area.
Well, yeah, I think you kind of got to bucket it into a couple things. Like, when you're starting out in your career, You got to look at it like learning and earning. I think this is a common framework that a lot of people use. But especially early on, I would say overweight on learning. That's going to give you the skills and the temperament and the inside knowledge to really understand what it is that you maybe want to break out and do. If that's what you want to do, obviously, I don't think everyone should break out and do things. I honestly don't think
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is for the vast majority of people. It's just, um, it's such a roller coaster emotionally. I don't think most people can handle it.
Yeah.
But if you're learning on the job, that's great. Just know what you're trying to learn, and then also, you can translate that into earning. That means getting promotions at maybe another company at your current one, or breaking off on your own, right? But
Yeah.
I think all too often what I see is like people will maybe get a year or two of experience, and then like I'm ready to go make the jump, and I'm like, you're not ready yet. You don't
Yeah.
have the and it's not a gatekeeping thing. It's just it's a maturity thing. Like you just don't have the knowledge and skills yet to go, I think, be fully functioning on your own. Because it's
Yeah.
like that, you have the knowledge of what you can do in your job, but then there's all the other stuff. Now you got to learn how to run a business too. Do you really think like 2 years of experience at a job is going to give you all that? I don't think so.
Yeah. And the mental shift as far as financials go, and just the up and down with that roller coaster of, am I going to land this contract? Are they going to sign and then they don't, or something falls through, or you don't get paid on time? I mean, there's lots of areas that I myself even question, like, am I ready for that? Because I'm a very type A person. I struggled with, just going with the flow, quote unquote. And that's why I also, I hired a coach to help me with that aspect of it, the salesmanship, and then just the mentality of being an entrepreneur and how you have to get comfortable with the uncertainty and just ride with it. And that's helped a lot. But it's still challenging on days, if I'm being completely honest.
Oh yeah, no, we talk about that offline. And I think you have a lot of I think your heart's in the right place for sure, but it is frustrating, when you send out these contracts and things happen, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah,
I learned early on not to get emotionally attached to things like outcomes, because there's just, especially in sales, there's just so much out of your control. Like
sure.
the deal maker you're working with, or the decision maker. It's like that person. A lot of things could happen to that person, right? They may have a bad day. They may, their boss. There might be some dynamics you're not aware of. There might be stuff with the company you're just not aware of. They're not going to tell you these things, so you're just like, so you can push as hard as you want. And I used to do that a lot, but then I'm like, I don't know anymore. I'm just like, whatever. If it happens, great. If not, well, I guess, you do sports and stuff. It's just one of those things where you leave it in the ring. You give it everything you got, but at the end of the day, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep.
So
100%. Yeah. And
yeah.
that's a great point you bring up too, on you never know what someone's going through in a day. And I've had to get really good about not assuming things, because I think I get so like hyper proactive, like, oh, like maybe this happened and this happened. And I start stringing together stories in my head. And then at the end of the day, like that's all it was. It was just a story, and I wasted so much energy
Yep.
and time dwelling and ruminating.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like to use dating analogies a lot, and it's definitely one of them where it's like there's just so many things out of your control, and you could like go through these mental contortions about this and that, but but that's also why I always tell people you got to keep your pipeline full too, because it's optionality is the name of the game. Like you should be in a position where you can actually say no to deals, not just fret over the one, because if it doesn't happen, then it sucks, and I
It's,
know what it's like. Mentally, it's draining.
yeah.
It's so draining.
Yeah, one of the biggest struggles too with keeping the pipeline full, it's like sure you'll land meetings, but for me at the stage that I'm in right now, like back to the niche component, I get on these calls and it's like, okay, your data analytics for small to medium sized SaaS companies. It's like, okay, but like it's hard for me to come up with like a direct pitch to like, land a deal right then and there. And maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's about just starting a conversation and building a relationship, which I would like to hear your thoughts on that. But then it's like, okay, but how many of these conversations do I do if there's really a low chance of conversion? How can I get qualified prospects? And that's where now I'm like, I need to pivot and niche completely into the home services space, which is what I'm,
Hmm.
working on right now.
No, we're talking about that too, and I think it's an exciting move for you. Like I think it's awesome to niche down. I would say niche as much as you can. I think all too often, especially in consulting, I notice when people start out, they want to they want to go full service and they want to go as broad as possible, which I think is a gigantic mistake. And it's
Mm.
counterintuitive because you want to try and get as much surface area of potential business as you can. But what happens is, if you talk to a prospect, I think often if you're everything to everybody, then you're nothing at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really hard for people to mentally wrap their head around, okay, so like you're one person, but you're good at everything. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
And so and then you don't really have a pitch. It's like, well, like we can do AI too, because that's what we're really good at, even though we've really never done it. So, I think what
Or
I
they're
learned is like, what's that?
excuse me, or they're at level 0 of the AI maturity life cycle and they don't even have digitization in their processes yet. Because like
Uh,
that's what I'm experiencing with a lot of these small businesses in the Columbus area. As I get on, it's like, all right, yeah, like I'm thinking, okay, data warehouse, like we're gonna have a Viz tool, we're gonna start doing awesome reporting, and then you find out that they've been doing all their financials in a Google sheet, and they're just now starting to migrate those processes and standardize them in QuickBooks. And so it's just
yep,
this whole process of becoming a business process analyst more than a data analyst or a data engineer. And that was a
that's
rude
just it.
awakening for me. And that's why I like the piece in your book where you go heavily into data generation because I didn't feel like I got that as a data analyst or an analytics engineer at a large
Mm,
corporation. Like you're just kind of throwing in to the middle of these Looker instances. The data's already being generated. You're just told to build these reports. You don't understand how the source system is even generating the data, how the users are interacting with it. So that's been like the biggest awakening for me. And it's also, I feel like I've finally been able to connect that missing puzzle piece.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you don't know until you get out in the wild, and you realize too. I mean, I think the thing is, the businesses that you're working with, like these are most businesses in America, right? I think all too often a lot of the in the tech and data space we're focused on, the Ubers and the Netflixes of the world, and that's certainly great. Great data problems to solve, but the vast majority of data problems are what you just described, where I mean, most people are just barely doing anything with data. I mean, they're collecting it somehow because they have to for probably tax purposes,
Yeah.
but it's an absolute mess, and I see this in small, medium, even semi-large companies as well. Because I mean, you got to understand these are businesses that are operated by people that are not surprisingly focused on their business, right? That's
Yep.
like, I know you work a lot with roofers and stuff, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine that a roofer would have um, any advantage per se of like saying, okay, so like let's spin up say Vertex AI and GCP. Like
Right.
that is not core to their business unless they have some process where AI is core, but I don't think that's the case. But like the whole point is like these people they roof. I know people have roofing companies. They do roofing things. That's what
Yep.
they do. That's why they make a lot of money doing it, right?
Yeah.
And they're successful, so you can't knock them.
No.
But so
Yeah. And just teaching them about data management is definitely the big challenge right now. But I think I'm actually slowly starting to kind of breach into why like the foundation is so critical. But it's also interesting because like one of my clients is going to integrate like a chat bot for inbound and outbound phone calling. And so their
that's cool.
idea of AI is taking a third party AI tool and then integrating into the company's processes. And I feel like maybe even for me as a consultant, it just gets muddled as far as like, where are you integrating AI like with a pre-baked tool versus like what would their own data and AI models that you could create with their own data? Like, where's the differentiator there? And like, I guess that's maybe even a question to you, but that's where it gets even more challenging to sell my value.
Yeah, I mean, I
So,
always look at the third-party tools as just a way to streamline existing processes, right? So I think it's pretty cool that they're at the point where they can start automating a lot of the inbound calls. I think that's
yeah,
awesome. I think everyone should try and do stuff like that. Like, I'm starting a new business right now, actually, and everything I'm working on is like delegate or automate,
sure.
right? Try not to build in a lot of bureaucracy and overhead out of the gate. Like especially with today's technology, I think you can go quite a ways with not having really any employees, which
Wow.
is pretty awesome. You know, um, so that's the goal that I have is it's very much an AI first company. or as much as possible, like trying to just streamline everything. But you also know the limitations of these tools too. Generative AI is really good for, I think, synthesizing things and summarizing things. It's not
Sure.
so good at, you know, maybe some other operations, but I'm using it right now a lot in various operations of my business, and it's cool. So, but like,
Well,
you also have to be aware that those things are on the table. But I would think that a lot of, kind of low tech companies, by the virtue of the type of business they're in, probably don't know about this stuff, right? So I think
sure.
your job as a consultant really is, as you point out, business process analysis and management really is, I would say, probably the advantage that somebody like yourself would bring to the table versus saying, yeah, you have to be doing analytics and all this stuff. Like that's great, but analytics for what, right? I mean, in most businesses, it's about like figuring out ways to increase revenue, increase market share, increase visibility, decrease costs. Those are the levers you're typically pulling as a small business, right? So,
Yeah. And
or
even
any
just
business really.
visualizing their profit loss statement and putting that in the Looker Studio dashboard is like that's a win right now for them. And we're not there yet. We're still standardizing the processes for QuickBooks and getting to that
Yeah,
point. So it's very slow, incremental, not flashy stuff at all that I'm doing right now. So yeah.
yeah, that's cool. How are you going about generating your leads?
Yeah. So right now I'm using two tools, Apollo.io for email automation, and it's also like a sales intelligence tool, so it'll give you prospect lists. So I'm just narrowing into roofing in Ohio, as general as that right now.
Yeah.
I just started this email campaign and I actually paid an email marketer to help me craft the emails, but I'm a little bit on the fence about it. Like how personalized is a like everyone knows when you have templated emails. So I haven't seen much success. The open rate's probably like 12.4% right now out of maybe 230 emails sent as of today, something like that. I haven't looked at the dashboard specifically yet today,
Yeah.
estimation, but yeah, so that's one piece. Another piece is using, and I apologize in advance if anyone gets pinged by me on this, but no, not really. But it's a tool called LeadWave.ai, and it's LinkedIn outreach automation. So you tailor the campaigns, and then it just sequences the messages, and a connection request sent, send a follow-up message, then 3 days later send another follow-up message. And I've actually gotten some success for like targeting Central Ohio data executives for that one and just talking to them,
Oh,
just having
interesting.
conversations. And there's a lot of tools out there that do these things. I just chose these two, partly because of my research, partly because I knew someone, part of one of the companies. But yeah, so that's one. And then recently I'm like, you know what? I might just need to bite the bullet and start cold calling. And I know that a lot of people, just from reading various LinkedIn posts, cold calling maybe is kind of frowned upon in data consulting. And Joe, I would like to hear your take on that. But I just feel like if I could figure out a word track to just be very intentional with Central Ohio roofing executives and call them as opposed to these bland email outreach campaigns, it could be a lot more
Yeah.
successful. I just need to get good at cold calling now. So that's the next challenge.
I don't see anything wrong with cold calling. I mean, I'm a big fan of prospecting. I think early on with Ternary, we did well, prospecting is an interesting thing. So cold emails and cold calls, I think, are good. I would cold companies and whatnot, and I would say the
Sure.
success rate was okay. I found a lot of good success by just showing up to industry events and really helping to educate, the value of what it is that I'm selling. Not selling them on maybe my company per se, but selling them on on the problems that we solve. In this case, in the case of Ternary, data infrastructure, data architecture, and why that's important. Why is data engineering important, right? If you want to succeed at doing data science and machine learning, you should set a proper foundation to allow those things to succeed, right? So that's a pitch
Yeah.
that we would give over and over. But I think I learned early on the art of selling without selling was very key. So that's building the relationships early and often, and then if things, because it's hard to time things, right? Because a lot of things have to happen where that person that you're trying to you know uh, that lead or whatever, that person you're trying to land as a client, like there's a lot of things that have to happen for that to work,
Yeah.
right? Like they have to be educated about the problem you're trying to solve. They have to have the problem you're trying to solve, and then they have to. I think that pain needs to be at the point where they're willing to entertain the idea of solving the problem. So I always look at it like a lot of hard things in life, like weight loss or you know, uh, just a lot of bad habits people have. It's like I think everyone wants to make themselves better, but like, what's going to be the catalyst to actually make you better,
Yeah.
and that you really want to make that change, and that's a lot like businesses. There's a lot of competing priorities, and and the constraint is always time and money. And so I always looked at it really as like cold calling is good, but I would say like you know at least soften then it's a warm call really, but like if people know who you are, then it's a lot easier, I think, to make that outreach. There's Corporate
Yeah.
Bro on Instagram. If you follow him, he does a lot of I think he used to be a sales guy. Now he just makes memes and funny videos, but he does some really good reenactments of cold calls actually, which I don't know if you've listened to him, but you should.
I think you may
So
have shared one of his posts, one of his reels on your story the other day. Maybe.
I probably did. There was one of them
Yeah.
where like yeah, he does. So he takes actual cold calls, I think, and then replays them and lip syncs over them. But they're hysterical. But like one of them is definitely this cold caller where the CEO of his company just got pinged, and he's just he's like, why do you keep calling me? This is stupid. Take me off your list, and take a finger and shove it up your ass. It's kind of how the ended the call. Lord knows I've been like that with salespeople before.
Sure.
I'll
Yeah.
just, I mean, and because I'm just like, if I'm not, if I'm not in the market for what you're selling, I'm not in the market for it. Stop calling,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
um, then it's just harassment. So yeah, it's a fine line. I think cold calling is. I think, like I said, I did it early on, but I got out of it pretty quick because I felt like the efforts would have been better spent. I think just being very targeted and
Yeah.
building relationships versus being just the 50th person to cold calls. I mean, I can look at my phone right now, right? My phone records, I have, I don't know, there's probably 5 cold calls as of this morning, reaching out like from various people. Hey, do you need web services or IT services? I'm like, absolutely not. And this person keeps calling all the time. I just send her to voicemail.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually had success, and then a failure fast following that. But I called a roofing company in the area, and some training I watched online. It was like just kind of approach it like you're a little bit confused, but genuinely like want to help. So like, hey, like I'm calling, is this blah blah blah? Do you know who I'd be able to talk to about gaps in your reporting that are causing you lost money? Like, who would I be able to talk to about that? And it was the receptionist, and then she connected me to the director of marketing, and then I
Oh,
got on the phone
nice.
with the director of marketing, but I dropped the ball. I just felt like this pressure to be like, oh, I gotta tell him who I am because he's the decision maker. Like, oh, I'm Christian Steinert, Steinert Analytics in local Columbus, Ohio, just doing market research, and he's just like, I'm not interested. And I was like, okay, okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. And
Yep.
I learned
Happens.
a lesson there for sure.
A really good book you should read if you haven't is a book called Start with No. I think I recommended it to you. I'm not sure, but that actually is a really good rubric for doing outreach. So the thing is, the way you'd pitch it with the Start with No framework is, uh, yeah, I don't know if this is a fit, probably not, but if you're interested, we can continue talking, and if not, no big deal.
That's
And
a, yeah,
then because you set you automatically give the person on the other end the reason to opt out, right? And if they want to continue, then it's their decision. So
that's
um,
great, and it just
because you
puts
want
your
to get
guard down.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
because then people aren't just like, what the hell is this person trying to sell
yeah,
me?
yeah,
So I always found like that was good because you never want to look desperate either, right? Like it's again, it's like dating. Everything's like dating basically in this game. You don't want
yeah,
to seem desperate because then everyone smells it on you. Then it's like, and if I'm malicious too, and I sense that you're desperate, yeah, of course I'm going to take advantage of the deal. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you when it comes to negotiation
yeah.
time because you need this deal. So
There it is. Yeah,
you know,
definitely a fine line. And yeah, being patient, like how often do you follow up with clients that have a potential contract that's going to be closing and like kind of weighing like how often you follow up with them. And that's definitely been a learned art or learned piece of this whole consulting pie as of right now.
yeah. But the paradox is that Jeb Blount, he had this book, Fanatical Prospecting, which I highly recommend. But, his whole point is to, however you prospect, whether that's cold calls, whether that's emails, whether that's, building relationships. Like you got to have the pipeline, um, constantly humming along. Because the moment you take your foot off the gas, he calls it the 90-day rule, but it takes you 90 days to just get back to where you were. So if
Yeah.
you're not doing that, then, you just wasted 3 months basically, and now you got to get back to square one, and that sucks. Because it's not like the money is just like is still coming in.
Yeah.
You gotta, it is what it
Keep
is.
the momentum, keep the momentum rolling. Yeah. And then actually your point on conferences too. And I think, I was just at National Restaurant Association with Kabula, and I think some leads came out of that. I haven't really heard too much from them, but I'm not really hospitality focused. So that's
Right.
okay. But it was a good first experience for like being at a conference in a sales capacity. But I think I'm actually going to start attending some roofing specific conferences. And there's
Good
actually one in
idea.
Orlando in October. And I'm just going to represent the LinkedIn data community and go walk around the floor and just try to let people know what I've got to offer them and how I'm helping a current roofing company. So we'll see how that goes.
Do you have a list of like kind of productized services that you offer? Because that might be cool to hand out to people.
That's a great idea. I haven't productized anything yet. I'm honestly still just doing hourly because I don't feel like I have like enough certainty in like boom, I can deliver this in this
Yeah.
scope in this time. I don't know how long things are going to take, so I'm still like I'll just stay hourly for now and move in to productization. Um, people on here feel free to disagree with me. Maybe other people have different experiences, but that's just kind of my thoughts right now to stay open-ended with these engagements.
So you're still trying to learn kind
Yeah.
of about that industry. Yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. I think just getting out there and talking to people is basically the only rule to this is just keep learning, right?
Yeah.
And refine it. But
Yeah, stay curious.
yeah, yeah, because I mean, you gotta, but if you can make the niche work though, right? That's pretty cool. Like, and I think it's really smart what you're doing, just focusing on a niche, especially an unsexy niche. I think everyone wants to go into well, there's a company here in Salt Lake City. I mean, they called Weave. Weave was a company that focused on building software for orthodontists and dentist offices. I think orthodontist is what they started out with, actually, right? So,
Sure.
but they went public, and massively successful company. But if you were to pick like a sexy business, I can't contemplate any scenario where orthodontist software would be considered a sexy
Right.
business, right? But
Yeah.
that's what they did. So,
Yeah, that's interesting.
and they dominate that niche. So,
More yeah, backing to lean into roofing now. And my dad's a
yeah.
dentist, so maybe I should have leaned into that avenue a little bit more. He's a professor too.
Oh man, well, dentists do pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one job I don't think that's ever going to be automated.
Sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at the health clinic the other day, and the doctor. I don't know if I got on the topic, but he was telling me his dad was a dentist as well, and that he still uses a DOS-based dentist software. I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I can't even imagine how many times your dad's getting hacked each day, but go for it. So,
That's crazy.
yeah. But it goes to show too. I mean, there's riches in the niches, and I think that's one thing for the audience to consider is, there's you can focus on sort of the red oceans, so to speak, where it's really bloody and competitive, or you can go to the blue oceans where it's a bit more tranquil and there's a bit more opportunity to
Yeah.
stake your claim.
And admittedly, like it took me a long time to kind of see that as a really strong avenue to lean into. Like I was so focused on like what's the sexy industry that I should grab onto to try to niche
Hmm.
into.
Why
But
were you looking at that?
I don't know. I just had this idea like okay, small to medium sized SaaS, maybe there's like healthcare analytics and like I've got experience at a telehealth startup, maybe I could lean into that. There's already a lot of like healthcare data analysts around. And then it's like my mentor who's got a roofing company and I'm sitting there like this has been in front of me the whole time like where so I guess I just say that to the audience to like always just look around at the people you know and the businesses that you're close to with the people that are in those businesses as opportunities. And that's
Big
that's
time.
kind of was the light bulb just went on just a couple months ago. So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do like the idea of you going to that roofing conference. So I think that's a really smart move. Just and start to show up. I don't know if there's like local roofing events or I don't know if they have like meetups like we do, but you
I think
know.
there might be one or two. I need to look more into that. That's a great reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. I did a stint in the industrial laundry business once. A friend of mine, his dad owned well, his family had, owned a really big operation for that kind of work, and his dad got killed in a plane crash. So I went to go help him with his business for a bit because he suddenly inherited a pretty
Wow.
massive operation and had no idea what he was getting into. But what was interesting is that even that group, right? There was a group of like independent industrial laundry families, right, that would get together twice a year and share stories and whatnot. Because it seems like it doesn't matter where you are. Every little niche has its kind of support group and operators and so forth. Because I think
Yeah.
it's yeah, I thought
Niche
that was
Facebook
interesting.
groups and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for
Yep.
sure. Are there
That's
niche like roofing groups?
Yeah, yeah. So I've joined a few. I've put out some videos, literally looking exactly like how you're seeing me now, and they haven't really gotten much traction yet. But I think I just need to like consistently keep uploading videos, or maybe even just like generic posts saying, "Hey, this is what I do." Like every week, I should probably put that on my structured calendar to do
Oh
that.
yeah, 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 exactly. And
Yeah.
I would suggest focusing on ways that you can help them understand, how like because I think it's got probably gonna be an education game for you. Like people probably don't even know how to spell analytics,
No.
or don't even know what it is. But part of your job is to educate people like why it matters and how they can, take their business to the next um,
Yeah.
level and so forth. So it's
The
yeah.
promising piece is that I just had a call last week to kick things off with the sales manager at this roofing company, and he said that out in his 10 years of experience in the roofing space, the best roofing company he's ever worked at was extremely data driven. And so I was like, okay, this
Mm,
is like really promising. Like I'm actually not just fairy tailing this in my head. There's definitely opportunity here for data to be of use to them.
that's
Um,
really interesting. What were they using data for?
I lead
Or I
gen
guess how are they using it?
Yeah,
How are they using?
mainly.
Yeah.
Well, right now, like my one example is lead data, so lead capturing data, and they're actually automating a Google Sheet using Zapier, and so they're
Oh,
pulling from
sick.
a few different sources, and most of them are coming ultimately from like a form fill in those sources. I think there's one app specific. It's just I think it's a generic industry lead gen app called like Zaptio or something like that. I may be getting it wrong here, but they're able to like fill in a lead prospect information and then it just funnels itself through the Zapier pipeline workflow into the Google Sheet. And then I'm connecting a Looker Studio dashboard on top of the Google Sheet and then visualizing that data just for like a quick win stopgap to deliver some version one for them just to have like
That's
low hanging
cool.
fruit. So it's basic. It's not anything advanced like a large scale like Looker, project, but it's definitely adding value. Like one of their sales managers actually like came up to me and didn't know we had this, and then I showed her the lead dashboard, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so great! This is gonna save me so much time and headache every
That's
day from
cool.
having to like gather it in the Google Sheet." And I was like, "Cool! Like that's actually a real tangible use case where it's helping you."
That's
So.
dope. Have you
Yep.
considered like turning that into a product at some point?
Just like the dashboard itself, or
Just whatever workflow you have. I
that
mean, if
process.
it, yeah, yeah, I think
That's a
that'd be dope.
Yeah. I just the in my head, I'm like maybe, and this is just perfectionism, right? Maybe it's like I want to try to long term it. Like we need to get formal data management in place. We need to eventually get a warehouse in place. This is just kind of a stopgap report. Like, what do you think of that? Like, selling that piece of it, like, as just like a quick win when it's not really the long term solution. I guess I just get a little bit on edge about that, from a advice and value direction standpoint for my clients and how I'm advising them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess it depends. Like, I could definitely see a situation where if you had like a very specific lead gen tool, that was dedicated to the roofing industry. I don't know what the peculiarities are of the roofing industry and why it's different than others, but if it's a lead gen tool that takes in data and provides leads, I mean that's a pretty simple sell. I mean, it's just like,
That's a great
then you don't have to
thought.
explain like what's analytics. It's like who gives a shit what analytics is? Like, do you want more leads or not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to streamline your lead gen process, or do you want to spend all your day mucking around in spreadsheets and all this friction heavy work? If you do, that's great. Go for it. Here's my number if you want to, chat further about the solution. So,
Yeah, that's a great thought. I guess the only thing there is how would what I produce differentiate itself from a lot of the roofing specific CRMs that I'm starting to see and talk to and do research on.
Yeah,
Like there's
that's
Proline and Job Nimbus. They're like the
yeah,
majority stake, and they're honestly they're able to take in lead forms as well. They just the
yeah,
infrastructure at my current client doesn't they're not there yet. They're just not there with Job Nimbus. But it's like
yeah.
how could I differentiate that? And that's where right now I'm kind of struggling, but I know like CRMs, right? They're not really I historically, right? They're probably not very good at tracking historical data. So there could be a big
I
value
don't know.
play with a formal analytics data warehouse, but I don't know. It's just yeah, just all this strategic thought right now that goes through my brain every single day as I think about this.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I know nothing about the industry, so I couldn't help you there. But
No, it's okay.
that's how you're gonna make the big bucks. Is you got to have that domain
Yep.
expertise to apply it to solving the problem, right? But I
Yeah.
always found with consulting, it's like, it feels like it's essentially consulting is knowledge arbitrage at the end of the day. Like you know something better than somebody else, and they're paying you for your time to to help them, by using that knowledge or
Yeah.
skills, right? But essentially, I've always looked at it from the perspective of how can I automate that or turn what is a one-to-one solution into a one-to-many. And so that's why, Matt and I wrote that data engineering book because we were, I think, kind of tired of answering the same questions over and over again. But that book also opened up a whole new world of opportunities for us to the point where we kind of, I would say for all intents and purposes are, I would say I don't say we put consulting on the back burner, but we definitely don't consider that as much of a big piece of our business as we used to.
Yeah.
Because I think education and and that kind of stuff, it just scales a lot better than consulting for I think every conceivable reason. But it also means
Yeah.
then you can charge more. If people really want you to consult, then it's like great, I'm going to charge you a lot more than I used to because there's opportunity cost, right?
Sure.
I don't really do any, well, we don't do any outbound. We get a ton of inbound all the time, but
Wow.
and I get a lot of interest from like a lot of the biggest companies on the planet, and
Hmm.
most of the time I'm not that interested because I'm just like I got a book to write, I got other things to do, and um, for me to now have the context switch and focus on consulting means like I give up the opportunity to think about the problems I'm trying to solve that I think would
Yeah.
be able to help a lot more people, right? So you gotta so at least for me, that's kind of where I am now. But I would say that's not everybody. But I think, but it all started with the realization that if in order for us to, I think expand beyond consulting, it also means you got to, move from again the one to one to the one to many
Yeah.
solution, and that's the only way you can do it. Because otherwise, you're constantly stuck in consulting, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think consulting's awesome, and if that's something that people like yourself want to do, go for it. I think it's a great way to make a lot of money quickly. It's just also like extremely high friction. Um,
Yeah.
you always got to, I think, feed the beast as it is. So you constantly have to just keep the projects coming in because that's how you get paid. And no projects means no payment. It's pretty
Yeah.
simple.
Pretty
So
simple. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think ultimately, yeah, the direction is to productize something in the roofing space, at least right now. And I don't really consider myself like a data educator, like e-learning person. Like it would be more
yeah,
specific to solving a business problem. I think, I think for me too, and I wanted to just touch on this, and it's
yeah,
maybe encouragement for some data consultants with less experience, more experience, whatever. But I see myself as more of a technical product person or a technical product marketer. I started in marketing. That's always kind of been my background. And no, Joe, I kind of told you this already, but
yeah,
I wouldn't consider my natural strength to be development. And like that was just kind of a skill that I was like, I need to learn this to provide a solid foundation and get decent at it to be able to deliver things. But ultimately, it's like delegating that out, being more of that technical product data storytelling face because like I love the data visualization side of it. So if there was like one technical piece, it's like it's the analyst storytelling piece. Like that's my
yeah.
bread and butter. That's truly where I thrive, and I think that's probably my like marketing background that helps with that. But yeah, I would just like to kind of say that because I don't know. Maybe there's this impression that you need to be this super technical expert in the data community a lot of times, but like I can
Right.
figure out other ways to add value too with some of the other skill sets.
That's it's really good that you understand that too, because I think it allows you the freedom to be your own person and lean into your strengths, right? Not necessarily trying to copy other people, in a way
Sure.
that's not natural to you. That's because it happens a lot. I think that especially when people think about going off on their own, that they try and have. I mean, you always have a rubric of somebody that, or maybe you want to attain like or emulate somebody's success, right? Everyone has that. But then eventually you realize like, you're kind of in it for yourself really, and you just got to chart that path for yourself. There's no way around it. And you get comfortable in your own skin after a bit, and then you figure out, okay, like what you just said, like your strengths, where you play well, and sort of that strike zone where you if you're playing baseball, you can hit the ball. It's just how it is. So
Yeah. No, it's actually cool. Like some of the other engineers on one of my fast food clients, they just built like the market basket modeling, like all the modeling, all the lookml, and then I came
oh
in
cool.
and reverse engineered it so that I understood like how were these filters working, and then I actually built the market basket dashboard that was then featured to the CEO just like last week, like end of last week. But everyone is like commenting to me like, oh, the visualizations look great, the dashboard looks great, and I'm like, to me that just validates, it's like good to hear, because it's like that's really, I think, ultimately my strength, and where I would love to be on the client side is kind of delivering those data visualizations and dashboards for
Oh,
sure.
that's badass. That's
I
super
appreciate
cool.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's
was
really cool.
really interesting work too. Some of the most interesting work I've done so far in my career. So it's been really rewarding for sure.
That's cool as hell. Good
I
for you,
appreciate
man.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess kind of closing out, is it anything else about consulting that's on your mind or
Don't give up. Like, I mean, as corny as that sounds, like I think I keep hearing the same theme, which is just stay the course. And I know we talk about that all the time, Joe. And
yeah.
I think this is going to be a long play. I don't think that it's success overnight by any means. You can make a lot of
No.
money quick, but also to sustain that amount of money, I mean, you have to keep putting in the reps, and that just takes time, just like building muscle in the gym. And so I really see this as like, a 5 to 10 year. This is going to be a lot of patience, and I'm learning that it's going to be even more patience than I thought I had, as I continue to go up and down. One day you're up, the next day you're at a low point, from success to failure. So yeah, just staying the course, and I just there's nothing else
Oh
I'd
yeah.
rather be doing. So you gotta
That's
know
just
that.
it, man. I mean, I've had businesses where I think I quit too early and that
Sure.
sucked. And yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You got to stay the course because I think a lot of success is just being there, and people eventually in that industry eventually get to know you, right? And then but if your game is only to stay around for a year or something like that, I mean, that's not enough time. I mean, if you're a roofing company, for example, and you're like, oh, let's just see how this goes for the next 6 months, you're not going to do anything. I mean, you're going against companies that have been around for decades.
Yeah.
6 months, a year, 2 years ain't shit. Business is one of these things where it's a function of, I think, just surviving long enough to get out of that bubble of obscurity, so people know who you are and they can trust you. And once you've established that reputation, the rest takes care of itself. But you do have to stick around. I think it's a major thing for the audience. If you're looking to leave, like, your job and start a business, just know like this is a commitment. This isn't just some fly by night thing where you're going to be doing it for a few months, and you got to be in it to win it. So
Yeah.
that means having money in the bank. That means having I would say a lot of ducks in the road, making sure that things are there to allow you to focus.
Yeah. And that too,
So
like I realized too, like I was in a really blessed position when I started out too on my own. There was, financial security there. So that's the other thing, like you just said, is make sure you have that, because it just provides more peace of mind day in and day out when things don't go
tons,
right.
absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, cool, man. So for people who want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is my number one medium. So I believe it's my end of URL is like Christian Steinert 96. I think I had to put the numbers because there was already a Christian Steinert that existed on LinkedIn when I created my LinkedIn back in 2016 or 15. So that's why. And then Instagram at Steinert 96. So that's also a place you can catch me.
Weights. You lift a lot of weights too. I mean, you move a lot of weight, I should say. That's good. So
I
you're in
appreciate it.
Ohio. I think everyone there is in
Yeah,
Columbus especially is a power lifter. So
meathead powerlifter. Yeah.
yeah. Well, what was it? Westside Barbells out of there, I think.
Oh yeah. Yep, Louis
Yeah.
Simmons. And then, you've got the pros gym, which is my old gym, which is the gym in the
Yeah.
Arnold. It's in that old bank building right on Long and High Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of my connections from, or for my clients, came from that gym. So that's also another tip there for the audience is the gym
Oh
has been a
yeah, yeah.
very big.
Don't sleep on the gym, dude.
Yeah.
Everybody, yeah, I completely agree. A
Yeah.
lot of good opportunities come from gyms. I
Yep.
think gyms are awesome because it's kind of like the equalizer. Everyone there's just to work out. You're not there to. It's not a country club where you're there to look snooty and shit. It's like you're there to
Yep.
just sweat and work your ass off. And if you find people like that, I think it's also a good qualifier too because you get to see people's work ethic.
Yeah. Who's doing the consistent reps, who's kind of on their phone lollygagging, which I mean, I'm guilty of that sometimes, but some days I'm on and it's go
Yeah, but you're not
time.
the guy who's sitting there for like 10 minutes, like texting on the phone on the bench. Like, I hate that, man. I truly hate that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I've been known to yell at people at gyms for doing that. So
Good. Yep.
yeah, making the world a better place. So anyway,
Yeah.
dude, well, it's good to talk to you. And yeah, good luck with everything, man. I think you're on a great path. So
I appreciate it, Joe. Great talking to you as well.
yeah, take care.
Thank you.